Hello everybody and welcome back to another not applicable Formula 1 video. I hope that you are well. I hope you enjoyed the Monaco Grand Prix for the spectacle that it is. It was absolutely beautiful to be back in Monaco after a couple of years out. Before we get into it, before we start discussing Monaco as a whole, if you could hit that subscribe button, we are edging ever closer towards 200 subscribers, and I would absolutely love to hit 200 subscribers. So if you could hit that, that would be absolutely amazing. Whilst you're down there, why not leave a like? Well, let's start at the beginning of the race, and of course, the sort of main talking point I think that really came from this race in particular was Charles Leclerc. His Monaco curse. And it is a curse by now. Like, there is no way you can be this unlucky so consistently without being cursed. So that's it, he's cursed. He was so unfortunate. Obviously put himself on pole. Whether he would have been on pole if he didn't crash into the wall at the end of the session is a completely different question. Obviously, lots of drivers were on hot laps, including himself, though. So maybe he'd have bettered his time. Maybe someone else would have pipped into pole. Probably Verstappen, it looked like it was going to be. But, you know, he got on pole and he just had to start the race, right? In Monaco, if you're on pole, you just have to get to the first corner, still in the lead, and you're pretty much guaranteed a win from there. But in the outlap, he was going towards the grid and he just could not get the car working. He thought it was the gearbox. It was actually the left drive shaft that they probably didn't check over because they were so concerned about the gearbox. And my goodness, I just felt so sorry for Charles. But this is what I want to ask you actually. Straight away, in the comments down below, if you were Ferrari, would you rather start pole and risk not actually being able to start the Grand Prix, or just take the 5-place grid penalty, make sure that the car is absolutely 100% ready for the race, and start from 6th? Obviously, hindsight is a wonderful thing. I said on Sunday, you know, I would take the position that I want to start from 6th rather than starting first and maybe not starting at all, but that obviously comes with the hindsight that we now know Charles Leclerc didn't actually start the race. But I'd love to know your opinion. If you were in the Ferrari seat, what would your decision have been? And it was so unfortunate for Charles, but Verstappen took more than enough advantage from that. I found it a bit weird that they didn't shuffle everyone forward on the grid. Verstappen still starting technically P2, but P1. Because he started in the second grid box, but he was first in terms of the cars on the grid. Very, very strange and a bit of a weird start to the race. I don't think we'll see very often at all in Formula 1. But Max absolutely drove sensationally. I don't really want to talk about Max too much because I think it was just a perfectly professional performance. He started at number 1, got it into the first corner fairly handedly, and from there managed his tyres exceptionally, managed to fuel load exceptionally, got the pit stops completely right, and absolutely smashed it. We can't say that Max Verstappen, who also had a bit of a Monaco curse, you know, he absolutely destroyed this race and was more than worthy of the win. But I'd rather talk a little bit about Perez of the Red Bull seats because he just managed to jump so many places in those pit stops. Red Bull this weekend got it so correct. And as a team, I know we talked about in Spain how they got the strategy wrong for Verstappen. Lots of people were pointing the finger at Red Bull saying, look, they got the strategy wrong for Verstappen in Spain. They should have done this, should have done that. In terms of Monaco, they got it absolutely perfect. It was impeccable racing. It was so good. They did everything right with Verstappen. They used all of the knowledge that they gained from Verstappen to do everything right with Perez. And both of them drove an exceptional race, even to the point where Perez was slightly catching up on Lando Norris, who did manage to get himself a podium. Before we talk about that, though, I think we do have to address the elephant in the room that was Valtteri Bottas. Valtteri Bottas should have been on that podium. He probably should have got 2nd or 3rd place, depending on how the rest of the race would have gone. But I've never seen this before, where the wheel gun literally sheared the entire metal surroundings of the inner tyre so that they couldn't get it off. There was even Ferrari mechanics after the race hitting the car with sledgehammers to try and get the tyre off, and they couldn't. It is completely bolted to that car, and they have to wait until it goes back to the factory before they're even going to be able to get that tyre off. Crazy to see. And it just sort of drove home to me that Bottas is never going to fight for a title, is he? He's just so unlucky. I was reading the statistics. I think Hamilton has had 45 races without an incident, without something going wrong for him. Bottas has already had 2 horrendous pit stops that have ruined his race in 5 races this season. It has just been mad that Bottas just cannot, even on a weekend where he's outperforming Hamilton by an absolute mile, he still just can't get the points together, can't actually finish the race. Obviously ended up retiring because of this problem, and he just can't get it together. I think Valtteri Bottas, as excellent as a driver as he is, he's never going to fight for a world championship, and I think it's more luck than it is his ability or his driving or the team behind him. I think he's just so unlucky so much of the time. But he did manage to outperform Hamilton all weekend, and it was a weekend where Hamilton just couldn't get it together. I've never seen Hamilton so moany before in my life. I've sort of forgotten how really petulant Hamilton can be where things aren't going his way. He blamed his team. He said that the team need to learn from this, almost like Yuki Tsunoda last time out. He was coming out just throwing all of his dummies out of all of his prams, and it was just awful from Hamilton. And let's be honest, he just couldn't get the tyres to work. They brought him in early. They were like, right, you've got the opportunity to do the undercut. You've got to get those tyres fired up. Absolutely electric lap, and then you'll be all set. And he couldn't. He couldn't get the warmth in the tyres, couldn't get the heat in the tyres in qualifying or in the race. And to be honest, was fairly handedly dealt with by Gasly and Vettel and Perez. Like, he deserved to come in 7th in the end, I think, Hamilton. And to be honest, if he'd have come behind Stroll or Ocon or someone like that because he'd have messed up somewhere along the line with another pit stop, obviously he went for fastest lap, which got him that extra point, but I wouldn't have been too surprised. It was an awful weekend for Hamilton. But on the flip side of that, it was a wonderful weekend for Carlos Sainz. Absolutely incredible drive from him. I think of the drivers that have switched teams, so we're talking about Perez, Daniel Ricciardo, I think he has been the one that has just taken it in his stride. And that is so difficult to do at a massive team like Ferrari. And he has been amazing, in my opinion. I think it's gone under the radar a little bit just because McLaren have been so good and Norris has been so good in these first 5 races. But Carlos Sainz, really underrated so far. And also, I'd love to know your opinion down below. Has he finally sort of shown that he really deserves that Ferrari seat? And how close can you see the battle between him and Leclerc being this season? Because I think it's going to be closer than people think. I know that Leclerc is sort of the number 1 driver and is Mr. Ferrari, but I can see Carlos Sainz sneaking up behind Charles Leclerc, especially as he gets more and more comfortable with this car and actually having a bit of a battle with Leclerc as it comes to the end of the season in terms of the points. Maybe that's just me, but I think Sainz could end up doing it. Someone who's going to come ahead of the Ferraris, though, in my opinion, Lando Norris. He's put himself 3rd in the Drivers' Championship. He managed to get a 3rd place finish this time around. Sorry, I was just trying to find this here. 3rd place for Norris. Another podium. Wow. Absolutely amazing. I was saying before that Ferrari really need to put themselves on the podium and give themselves a little bit of authority back in the fight between Ferrari and McLaren for 3rd place. And on the weekend that Ferrari are able to actually put a car on the podium, Norris says, no thank you. I'm going to get my 2nd podium of the season, my 2nd 3rd place, just to let you know that McLaren are still in this fight for 3rd place and we are going to be running the show. And I absolutely bloody loved it from Lando Norris. He was incredible again on the weekend. I know he had a bit of a rough time in Spain, but apart from that, he has been so good, so amazingly good. I think Lando Norris is going to have another one of those seasons where if he can get it together. So last season, he started so incredibly quickly as well. But then over the course of the season, Sainz managed to get back at him and sort of grab those points here and there and ended up finishing above him. I really hope that Norris can actually end up finishing above his teammate. And I think Ricciardo is having such a horrible time of it. Ricciardo ended up fighting in between, Raikkonen and Alonso. He was in with the Alfa Romeos and the Williamses. It was an atrocious weekend for Ricciardo, and this is one of his favourite tracks as well. So it is not going Ricciardo's way. I've seen lots of analytics saying that this car just doesn't suit Ricciardo in the same way it suits Norris. And I think it's going to be a long time this season before we see the best out of Ricciardo. And Norris is just going from strength to strength to strength. And I think at the end of the season, when they look back, they're going to think, of these two drivers, if we have to get rid of one of them, I think it's going to be Daniel Ricciardo. And I don't think many people were going into this season thinking that was going to be the case. I think people thought it was going to be very, very even between the two of them. But I think Norris is going to edge it by an absolute mile. Let's talk about the other drivers that had an incredible day then. Vettel finally looked like his old self. I know that it's Monaco and there isn't really any overtaking. And that probably played into the hands of Vettel a little bit in that he was able to hold on to that 5th place. But you've got to give it to him. In the pit stops, he did everything right. He drove really, really well. Monaco is one of those tracks that if you make any sort of mistake, you are punished instantly for it. No mistakes from Vettel in a car that is supposedly slower than Stroll's. Got to take your hat off to him. I was saying at the beginning of the season and the first couple of races or so that I think that Vettel might be done. I think he's shown, he's still got a horse in this race. If he can continually outperform Stroll, out-qualify, outdo in the race, he's now got more points. He's done really, really well to get a 5th place. 10 points is going to be big for Aston Martin this season, I think. I know that Stroll ended up getting 4 points down in 8th place, but if you look at it, I think that point difference, even those 6 points just there, just make Vettel stand out that little bit more. A 5th place finish, it's going to be really hard for Stroll to get a 5th place finish. So that means that even if they finish on the same points, Vettel actually ends up on top because he had the overall better position in one of the races this year. So Vettel has done an amazing job there to get a 5th place. Really, really well done. Another driver who drove exceptionally well, and we should just be expecting of this now. Pierre Gasly is so good. I'm going to put him up there in the same category as Norris and Russell. I think he is a future world champion. I think he is up there. As I said, I think Gasly, Norris, Russell, and Leclerc are the ones you're looking at. Those 4 are the next generation. I think they are absolutely amazing. And I don't know why more people don't put Pierre Gasly's name in the hat with those guys. I see all the time people talking about Leclerc and Norris and Russell because he's at Williams and he's going to be moving to Mercedes. Gasly needs to put his name in there. Gasly is as good as those drivers, and if they were in similar machines, I think Gasly would be maybe even a little bit better. I'm putting my hat in the ring. I'm saying Gasly. I absolutely adore the man. I love the way he drives. I'm putting Gasly down as one of those 4 that are possible world champions in the future and are the next generation of talent coming through. Once Raikkonen, Hamilton, Bottas, they finally move on, those are the guys that are going to take their place. And I am so looking forward to it. Okay, let's also talk about Yuki Tsunoda, who had an atrocious weekend. I don't think we can put Yuki Tsunoda's name in that hat yet. He was pretty awful. Fighting down at the bottom there, came 16th in the end, I'm looking, was a lap down on everyone. And as you can see, was fighting with the Williams and the Haas drivers. That is not somewhere you want to be, especially if you're an AlphaTauri. And since Bahrain, we really haven't seen anything from Yuki Tsunoda. It's been 4 races now where we haven't seen anything like what we were expecting from him this season. Yes, he's a rookie, but he's a rookie in the Red Bull system where you get absolutely no leeway. We've seen Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon drive great, continually excellently. We've seen Daniel Kvyat drive excellently at AlphaTauri, and they're all gone. They've all been sacked off. It is so hard to keep your seat in Red Bull and in AlphaTauri, and he really needs to step up to the plate sometime soon. Let's move on a little bit to the Alpines. Don't want to talk too much about them. Another consistent race for them. Another points-winning race. Obviously, only Ocon in the points with a 9th place finish, but points are points for Alpine. And they just seem to be getting better and better and better. I don't think this track really suits their type of car, but they do seem to be taking steps forward every single race weekend. And it'd be interesting if they could put themselves in the mix with Gasly And with sort of maybe a Norris towards the end of the season, if they can, put Ocon that little bit further forward, and Alonso just looks like he's struggling. He's talked about how he's struggling, but I don't think Alonso is there for the on-track ability. I think Alonso is there to help guide the team through this transitional period into next year. So I don't think they'll be too unhappy with Alonso's sort of racing pace at the moment. And I think after those 2 years that Alonso will be at Alpine, I think they'll move him on for someone else. Then we talk about Giovinazzi, and I thought it was going to be Raikkonen who got the top 10 out of the two, if I'm honest with you, but Giovinazzi just showed why he's in Formula 1, why he's an exceptional driver. He got that 10th place finish, that final points position, great drive from him, can't really complain about it. Kept Raikkonen behind, kept Ricciardo behind, kept Alonso behind. Very, very well done from him. The Williams cars, not going to talk too much about either, had a bit of a non-plus weekend. George Russell qualified pretty well. I don't think he was ever going to end up in the points, though, especially where you can't overtake. The only way he could have ended up getting in the points was if there was a safety car, and there actually wasn't a safety car, was there? For the first time at Monaco in forever, what it feels like. There feels like there's always a safety car, at least one, and there really wasn't, so you just didn't really have that opportunity, and neither did Latifi, but at least they ended up finishing above Tsunoda, so they can maybe take a positive out of that, in that they were able to keep an AlphaTauri behind, a much, much quicker car on its day. So they did really well to do that. And then finally, the Haas guys, Mick Schumacher with the only on-track overtake that wasn't just down the pit straight into turn 1 on lap 1. An incredible move, actually, into the hairpin. And something that's been underplayed. Obviously, Mick ended up behind Schumacher. Behind Mazepin. Yeah, he did. So Mazepin ended up just in front of Schumacher, but again, they were 3 laps down. Ouch. I didn't know they were 3 laps down. That is really, really bad. The Haas have completely thrown in the towel this year. I think we can all agree that they are just not going to be fighting for points or even positions at any time soon, let's be honest. I think they are just a parade car at this point. If both drivers can get around, do as many laps as possible, and just sort of be there as part of Formula 1, I think it's good for Mick. He's getting experience with absolutely no pressure whatsoever. And Mazepin actually had a really good race. I know that I had the video last week talking about Mazepin, and it was very one-sided, and that was sort of the point of the video, was to look at it from a very one-sided perspective. But actually, he had a very good race this weekend. He kept everything clean, and it was Mick Schumacher that was the one that was really causing Haas the issues. Obviously, crashed in FP3, couldn't make qualifying, and then had a bit of a stuffy race right at the back of the field. Didn't really do anything of note. Whereas Mazepin, very clean through all the free practices, very clean through qualifying, and very clean through the race. Did a really good drive, kept it on the track, and especially at Monaco, keeping it on the track is more difficult than you would imagine. But that is my take, and actually I've been going for a little while there. Apologies that this is maybe a little bit of a longer breakdown than usual. Thank you so much for watching, though. I appreciate it. If you've made this far, leave a like on the video. Comment down below, as I said, what do you think of this Monaco Grand Prix? What was your favourite moment? Can you see there being any changes to the Monaco Grand Prix so there can be more overtaking, especially next year with the new regs that they're finally going to be overtakes at Monaco? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much again, and I will see you next time.